Let's talk healing trauma for manifestation. Is it necessary? How do you do it? How do you not do it? This video will give you everything you need to know. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena. I'm a somatic self-concept and manifestation coach, and I support women to shift their self-concept, embody a new state of being sustainably through a uniquely holistic and emotionally integrated approach so that you can align with your authentic desires and make anything that you desire in your life manifest. We're essentially bridging the gap between who you currently are or perceive yourself as and who you desire to be or become, because you don't have to settle. I upload videos every week, so if you want more of this, then please subscribe. I would love to welcome you into this community. You can also leave a like or share this video with a friend, and I highly encourage you to check out the links in the description box below, because there's a bunch of free resources there for you where you can get started on your journey of transforming your self-concept and manifesting the things you desire, whether you have been on this journey for a while or whether you are new to this world. I have developed a very specific method for it that will change the way you see manifestation and lead to a lot more long-lasting success. And if you've been here for a while and you want to dive even deeper and you're like, I am ready for my transformation, you can also reach out to me for coaching. I have a coaching program called Recreate Yourself. It's my baby, and you can find information about that linked in the description box below as well, or send me a DM on Instagram, and I'm happy to connect with you and answer any questions that you have about anything you see in these videos. Okay, let's talk trauma. It's not a comfortable topic. It's not a topic that people like diving into, understandably, but it is very important and very necessary, especially in the context of manifestation. So first we need to define what trauma even is, because nowadays it's a word that's really thrown around like crazy. So many people are using therapy speak, and I have now seen it in the manifestation community as well, but I have actually seen very few people treat trauma the way it needs to be treated, because just because you have information about something doesn't mean you know how to actually heal it. But we need a definition to get started. So I define trauma as a shock to the system. And it's not about the circumstance. It's not about what happened. It's about the response to what happened. Gabor Mate says that trauma is not what happened to you, but what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. And I think that really brings it to the point. And that is very important to acknowledge as well, because we can often minimize the experiences that we've had because it's not objectively traumatic. So whilst trauma can refer to things like abuse or a significant loss, it can also be that your parents forgot to pick you up from school, and that created an abandonment wound in you. And trauma can be created through things that happened to you, but it can also be created through things that didn't happen to you, but that you would have liked to happen or needed to happen even. So that could be the love and the attention that you did not receive. How does this connect to manifestation? Why does it even matter? Maybe you can even see it in the definition that I just gave you. So how I define manifestation is you bring the formless into form. Something that doesn't tangibly physically exist yet, at least not in physical form, you make it physical through your state of being, through your consciousness. And if you're here, you likely want to do this deliberately and consciously, rather than just letting life happen to you, right? And you're manifesting all the time anyway. You're manifesting all of the time, but largely that is unconscious. Which means that if you carry trauma or pain from the past within you, and you don't even have to know where it comes from, but if there's something inside of you that is still attached to an old story, an old wound, that will be in your subconscious, and that will therefore project out and impact your manifestations, what you're able to manifest, how you're manifesting, whether you're getting partial manifestations, whether you're coming up against the same patterns over over and over again. And it's important to remember that you can have an awareness of the beliefs or even the trauma that is holding you back. I speak to a lot of people who come to me and who are like, I know that this is a belief that I need to work through, but I don't know how to shift it. Or I've been trying to shift it. I've been doing these techniques and I've been meditating and I've been doing different things, or they've maybe even worked with a coach. It's just not changing. It's just not shifting. And that is very common, because just because you have awareness of something, just because you know the belief or the pain that is holding you back, doesn't mean that you've processed it. Most likely you haven't, actually, if things are still manifesting the same way, or if you're still impacted emotionally in a certain way through it. So to summarize all of this, trauma and manifestation are deeply connected because your past experiences, especially ones that are so significant that they create a wound inside of you or a belief system or an emotional charge, that festers in your subconscious and consequently determines your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about your reality, your beliefs about what's possible for you, your triggers, your reactions. And if it's not dealt with appropriately, it will not resolve itself simply through awareness or time. So if you've been trying to manifest something for a while, or you have a desire that is really close to your heart, or a pain that comes up when you think of your desire, there will be an emotional charge that might be connected to some core trauma, might not be, but there will be an emotional charge that needs to be worked through. If things aren't coming through, or you feel like you're going in circles, you go back and forth in your state, it might be the emotional charge, it might be the trauma that is keeping you from the full manifestation. And sometimes people are very resistant to doing the deeper work associated with this because, of course, it's not comfortable. It's not a fun thing to talk about. It is much more fun to talk about just imagine, just visualize, and it will happen. But for the more emotionally charged desires, that's just not the reality. There's a reason so many people are stuck and trying over and over again, and they keep hitting a wall. There's a reason for it, and this is one of the reasons. Another reason people are sometimes resistant to doing this deeper work is because they are afraid that it will keep them stuck in the emotion, in the trauma, or that they keep themselves in a cycle of healing, endless healing. And I understand this fear very well because that is exactly how most people handle trauma. For example, in traditional talk therapy, you talk about it every session, about your childhood wounds and your father did this and this happened, and you just talk it to death. But nothing changes. This can also happen in coaching containers. If the coach isn't fully trained, not just in knowing what trauma is and how it shows up, but actually healing it, you gain a lot of awareness about it, but you keep going in circles talking about the same thing over and over again without actually changing anything, integrating anything, and applying what you need to apply. These experiences naturally create the perception that if you prioritize working with your trauma as a gateway to getting your manifestation, it will just keep you stuck and it will just keep you in a cycle of healing. But that's not what it has to be like, and it's not what it's supposed to be like. In the method that I teach in Recreate Yourself, we do a lot of healing work. We do a lot of work on repatterning the things in your psyche that you're holding on to from the past, be that from your childhood or a past relationship or a core trauma. We do a lot of work on this, but we do it in a very specific way and not in a way that keeps you stuck there. I get clients tell me all the time things like, I cannot believe this. I have been in therapy for 15 years. I have spent time regulating my nervous system. I have done somatic work, but still nothing comes close to what I experienced in this container because they were still stuck before. And I'm very proud and grateful that I get to be able to bring this to clients because it's a very, very different way of working with trauma and working with trauma for manifestation specifically, for shifting your identity, your self-concept specifically, because it actually changes things. And I fully understand the fear of remaining in a cycle if you look at your trauma. But it's not about looking at it, it's about healing it. Just because you have awareness about trauma and how it's created and how it manifests doesn't mean you know how to heal it, unfortunately. And the reason I can, and I do this with my clients, is because I have gone so deeply into my own process. I have healed my deepest childhood wounds as well. I'm gonna link my story above my head right now, but I have also done a lot of training on this. And I want you to know that healing has nothing to do with fixing. There is nothing to fix about you. And it's also not about gaining awareness. That is at the very most a helpful starting point, but it does not create changes. I want to go a bit deeper into the various reasons why trauma is the biggest block for manifestation. And I've already touched on the emotional charges, but there are other reasons as well. But let's start with the emotional charges. So your body is holding on to these charges from your past, which makes it difficult to embody a new self-concept because your current identity, your current self-concept relies on these emotional charges that it's so used to. And I sometimes see people approaching changing their self-concept or embodying a different state of being from a purely spiritual perspective. So they say things like, I am just going to connect to my I am, my God consciousness. And of course, you're a spiritual being. You're just having a human body right now. You're just living a human life right now. But it very quickly gets problematic because when you just connect to the divine, most of the time, and the people I've seen do this, it leads to bypassing. And this can be unplanned. It might not be intentional, but you're skipping a few steps if you haven't done the healing before. And why I love the approach that I teach so much and why my clients see these results in Recreate Yourself is because the process is very intentional to lead to an integrated and embodied shift and change in your self-concept that is so embedded in you that you do not go back from it. So you're not skipping any steps. And that is one of the things that makes it very, very powerful. You're not trying to jump all the way ahead. It's not a quick fix, but it's really making it last. I see so many people jumping back and forth or constantly having to practice. And that's how I would advise you not to do it because it's exhausting. And with how I teach you it, the way there is bumpy. I'm not gonna lie, it's not comfortable all the time. My clients always say, Recreate Yourself is not for the faint-hearted, but that's what you have my support for. And I give my clients a lot of integration support after they finish the program as well. But what is so powerful is that once it fully lands, it lands. There is no way back. And that is amazing to watch in another person when you just see this shift in their state, in their consciousness, in the way they feel about themselves, when they suddenly see all this potential and all these possibilities that they couldn't really feel into before, at least not in a sustainable way. You see it in their face. You see it in the way they hold themselves. You see it in the glow they get. And it's beautiful to witness. And those are the changes that I want for everyone. For everyone watching this, I want you to feel this way and I want you to really embody this so deeply. I have broken the most persistent patterns, things that I never thought I'd be able to overcome. And despite having a deeply spiritual connection, it did not just happen through connecting to the God within. Aside from the emotional charges, another reason is your nervous system. When people have unhealed trauma, they tend to be in a constant state of dysregulation in their nervous system. If you are very confused about this and you have never heard anything about how the nervous system plays into manifestation, I have a different video about this too. But your nervous system remembers the emotional charges from that trauma that was created. It remembers the pain from the past. And when you don't do the work to truly process and heal your trauma, you're likely going to stay in a state of dysregulation. And the key here is that this can be very subtle. You might not even know this because it becomes your status quo. And I say this because I was that person. I used to be there. I thought I was regulated and I wasn't. And by that point, I had done so much work on my self-concept already, more in the ways that people tend to teach it nowadays, not in the way that I teach it now. I had shifted my mindset in so many ways. I had been trained in different nervous system modalities, like breath work was a big thing for me, is still a big thing for me, EFT tapping, yoga, but just having tools to regulate my nervous system did not mean that my status quo was a regulated state. I had to find out that I had been in a subtle fight response the entire time. I was mind blown when I really realized this and started shifting this. It changed so much for me. Now, this was a chronic state, and because it was so subtle, I didn't notice it, but it did keep my subconscious in a constant state of alert, in a constant state of survival. And here's the problem with being in a constant state of dysregulation, even a slight dysregulation. You're going to find it very hard to surrender and receive and to fully open up to your desires, to your manifestation. The fear of the unknown is unconsciously so big that you might be blocking something from coming in or transforming without even realizing it. Which brings me to the third reason why trauma can block your manifestation, and that is connected to your subconscious, because your subconscious protects you from experiencing the pain from the past again at all costs. Your body is amazing, and whatever hurt you in the past, it's going to want to prevent that from happening ever again. Now, in a lot of ways, that's helpful because it's doing its job very well. But in a different way, the same part in your psyche that is blocking you from that pain again is also blocking you from the very thing you desire. Basically, if you are blocked off to the unknown of what you want to avoid, you're also going to be blocked off to the unknown of what you desire. And the work to dismantle and reprogram that in your subconscious, that is super essential and one of the biggest parts that you get in my method and in my program. This is the piece that changes the most for you. And here's why. It creates shifts in your consciousness and in your state of being and in your self-concept, your self-identity, before you even consciously try. I hear from a lot of people that the way that they've been taught to embody a different self-concept or even manifest something consciously is purely future focused, and the coaches that they've worked with didn't fully know beyond the mental piece how to dismantle what is going on in their subconscious and reintegrate it in a different way. And when you do that, you create shifts in your consciousness that are palpable. And then the step to actually embodying something new is so much smoother. This is where manifestations come in before you even try consciously to manifest anything. Because your subconscious is smart. It doesn't just know what to protect you from, it also knows what you want. Reason number 4 is that how most people handle their trauma, once they are aware of it, or once they are aware of the patterns that they wish to break, or the beliefs, or the emotional charges, they tend to either be caught up in it or subtly avoiding it. So this may look like, I don't need this, I don't need to look at it, I'm just going to embody this state, I'm just going to practice it, I'm just going to imagine something different, I'm just going to connect to my I am, and you're very subtly avoiding the actual work you need to do. And I understand if you don't know how or you don't have the right support to do so. But what you resist persists. You cannot run from this, and you will see in your reality whether you are. Or the flip side of that is that you are caught up in it. You are highly identified with your trauma, you are in some victim consciousness, and when you've created a story or a self-concept around it, you're stuck in this spiral, which kind of feeds into the last piece, reason number 5, and that is that it becomes your identity. Your trauma becomes who you are. It never becomes who you are, but you can have that perception. It becomes your self-concept, which is why healing trauma is so key for you to change your self-concept, because your self-concept, your current one, will be connected to your trauma, whether you're aware of it or not. Healing trauma is really essential for successful and sustainable manifestation and self-concept shifts. And I'm obviously talking about the bigger manifestations, things that your heart is really longing for, because you won't have these emotional charges and this resistance with things that don't matter to you as much or things that are seemingly very small to you. But it's time to really dive in deeper and commit to doing the work. What do you feel is your biggest block to your manifestation coming through? What belief or emotional state is it for you? I would love to hear it. Let's have a conversation down below. You can also always send me a DM on Instagram if you want to know more, dive deeper, or just share where you're at or what you're manifesting. And I will see you in next week's video.